How's the increasing adoption of like cloud platforms impacted the evolution of the data engineering role then?
Good question. I think it's different. It's interesting because in the old world, maybe you'd partner with a DBA.
Mm.
As a data engineer, you'd say, okay, DBA is responsible. There's some person out in another office, maybe, who goes into the data warehouse and make sure everything is running well, and or maybe it's not, who knows. But there's one person or a team that you're working with. Now it's if you submit a ticket to AWS support if something's gone wrong, or you trust, or there's a lot more abstraction again. So
Mhm.
sometimes those abstractions can be leaky and a node is replaced, or it's hard to know exactly what's going on or why performance is different. But again, you have the ease of not having to go in and worry about all of these underlying details. You can just say, okay, AWS, someone's dealing with it. I don't have to worry about this, hands off, which I think is, and it seems like the market has said that's a bet that a lot of people want to, or a trade-off a lot of people want to take, but it is different. Yeah. Like I have to say, like
Mhm.
I've worked on teams with the DBA and I miss having that relationship with that person. You'd call them up and say, hey, I think something's gone wrong. And they're like, oh yeah, let me go look at what's going on, or dive deep together. It's definitely it's a different setup. So we're
Yeah,
seeing that job get, if you will, automated away.
yeah. So it's just more the scalability and there's the flexibility now, just to obviously pass it to like a managed vendor and
Yeah.
just minimize the workload, doesn't it, for people?
Yeah. And you can talk about provisioning too. I used to say, hey, we need a new workload coming on. We need 20 more nodes, or whatever it may be. That used to take 6 months, and you'd have to submit tickets, and there's red tape, and there's all sorts of work required to do
Mm.
that, and actually finding where we're going to put that in. You don't have to do that anymore, which is great. But yeah, it's great power, great responsibility. You have to make sure you're doing these things effectively. You can run up a large bill really quickly. So you have to just be more aware. There's more responsibility on the data engineer in that way. So it's changed a little bit.
Yeah, even in the cloud. Obviously, I mean, obviously, your company may be different. Obviously, with other companies, they normally had just like one cloud platform, and then now companies have got multiple cloud platforms, and then so I guess even data engineer, you got to have not just like AWS, maybe Azure, GCP.
Right.
Like you got to have that knowledge now. This again, more knowledge, more understanding. I know they obviously do the similar things, but it's still there's differences, isn't there, to them?
Yeah. Yeah. It's actually an interesting point you touch on, because it's not largely, but it's somewhat shifted in the cloud world from a where you could before work in an open source world of Postgres or a lot of these databases. Download the binaries and install and run on your own. You could look at the code that was running. With a lot of the cloud providers, you can't really do that. If you look at something like EMR, that's using Spark, but if you look at Glue, it's also using Spark. But again, like there's
Mm.
more kind of magic going on there, so you don't really know what's going on all the time. And then, yeah, if you look at other providers, I don't know, you can look at Snowflake is a little different. It's again, you don't really know what's going on all the time, which has again its pros and cons, because there's likely new features in there that make things run faster or more optimized, different connectors that simplify your life. But then when something goes wrong, often it's hard to dive in and see what's going on.
Mm.
Submit a ticket sometimes, and you're wondering, is someone going to fix this? When is it going to get fixed? Whereas open source, you can write the code that you want, merge it yourself, follow the release, or just work on a branch. There's a lot of different trade-offs there.
Yeah, no, it's definitely just doing this like the key thing is just it's constant, continuous learning sort of thing, or consistent development as well, or continuous improvement. I think is key. It's just that everything's you complete one task and then something new comes up and then it evolves into something new, and you just got to keep going with the flow, haven't you? It's like data journey is, I think, a good name for it.